Steve here. It's the show where I answer your questions, and this week my first question comes from Ahoyerno. With Trump signing the Religious Freedom Act, effectively implementing aspects of Sharia law, who needs ISIS anymore? Trump does. Because if he didn't have ISIS, then he would have to rely exclusively on immigrants and LGBTQ people and Democrats and Hillary Clinton and black people to frighten and manipulate his base of low information white people voters into supporting him. And it's good to diversify, you know. You don't want to put all of your eggs into one half dozen baskets. You know, you need to have ISIS out there lurking in the shadows so that you have something in your back pocket that you can always whip out to terrify the base into continuing to support you as you continue to become more and more blatantly unhinged. So Trump needs ISIS. So that's why he's not going to be very fond of any comparisons of his idea of religious liberty and the ISIS idea of religious liberty, no matter how valid and numerous those comparisons might be. John Kaufman, I'm a huge fan of the effective altruism movement, and one of the central ideas is that there are limits to how efficient our support can be. Most of the time I see this focused on monetary support, but I think it also applies to volunteer efforts and even to empathy. How do you pick which causes you lend your aid to out of all the causes you are sympathetic towards? How do you personally decide what causes or movements you promote with your channel? I feel like, watching your previous videos, you're someone with a huge amount of empathy but limited time. So what do you do to maximize the impact of your work? As far as how do I choose what to focus on or where to direct my efforts, in terms of the channel, it's just topics that I naturally sort of gravitate towards because of my politics, because of the social issues that I happen to be invested in and care about. And I feel as though I can touch on a wide variety of subjects because I'm just offering commentary. I'm just giving, and if I do offer information or try to educate people, it's usually in a very basic sense, in a 5 to 10 to 15 or 20 minute video, and then I'm off to the next thing. So it doesn't take a great deal of commitment from me in terms of time or effort. As for organizations that I personally support through, you know, financial donations or spending time in my own life off camera, yeah, I guess it's personal choice. It's just things that I don't know how else to say it other than it's just stuff that speaks to me, that I look at and it touches something in my brain, some part of me that says to me, this is important and you should focus on this. You should invest a lot of time in this. It's difficult for me to quantify. Lucas Stefaniuk, hi Steve, what is your opinion of supporting research on reversing the effects of aging? Helping organizations such as SENS might put the death-related anger and fear to good use? Or do you think that it is a false hope or too selfish given our current affairs? I think that it's research worth supporting and worth pursuing. I think if it can extend life and improve quality of life for people, then I'm all for it. And as someone who is not looking forward to death, I am all for extending my life and improving the quality of my life as I age. My concern would be that when we get to that point, when we are on the threshold of having technology that could actually extend someone's life or improve the quality of someone's life in a way that isn't possible now, that there will be barriers to those things that will be determined by things like economic class. In other words, if they discover some kind of treatment for cellular senescence, let's say, that can extend human life a great deal and vastly improve the quality of life for extremely aged people, that it will only be the wealthy that will be able to take advantage of that. And also resource management. You know, are we still going to be having kids at the same rate? So fewer people are dying, but we're still having kids. We're going to be depleting the Earth's resources a lot more quickly. So we're going to have to start thinking about that as well and take that into account as we start thinking about, oh, hey, let's extend our lives. We need to extend our lives, but we also need to get a lot better at managing our resources so we don't outlive the ability of our planet to support us. Sabrina Luiz Meredith. Hey, Steve, why do you think there's such a stigma against mental health issues in this country? No one bats an eye if a man takes Viagra, but if he's on antidepressants, it's an issue. Bonus question, what do you think we as a society should do to remove this stigma? I think it's just ignorance. I think that's the reason why it's so stigmatized, and I think the best way to alleviate that stigma is to alleviate the ignorance through education, through awareness. I mean, the most basic thing that people need to realize about mental illness, people who don't yet realize this, which is a lot of people, is that mental illness itself is already normal. It's something that if you have never experienced some form of it yourself, you almost certainly know someone who has. It's an incredibly pervasive part of human experience. Mental illness is such a broad term that applies to so many different kinds of conditions that it's virtually certain that either yourself or someone you know has dealt with it in some form at some time in their lives. So it's not this exotic, strange, invasive thing that we have to deal with or we have to protect ourselves from. It's a part of human experience. Mental illness is no more exotic or alien to human experience than physical illness. It's just a part of our lives, and it should be seen that way, and it should be treated that way. And people who live with it should be regarded in that way. And we shouldn't associate mentally ill people with being dangerous, with being violent, with being erratic or unstable or not suited for being around. These are all false things. These are all stereotypes, and very harmful stereotypes. Hopefully we can get to the point where people who have mental illnesses are no longer stigmatized any more so than people who have physical illnesses. And people who have physical illnesses are still stigmatized in many ways as well. We need to work on that too. But I think we're far, far behind even that point when it comes to mental illness. Matt Helmers, yo Steve, last week somebody asked a lightning round question about church youth groups that made me remember a story and think of a question to share. When I was about to begin high school, I decided to attend a friend's youth group with an open mind in the hopes of making new friends. By that time, I was already an atheist. I believed Christianity was a religion practiced by mostly well-meaning people who were taken advantage of by charlatans, whack jobs, douchebag politicians, and all manner of hypocritical opportunists. It wasn't long after I got there that the youth minister, Tom, started playing the licking game, which basically consisted of him licking kids while they laughed. I was freaked out and spent the night feeling like I had made a mistake in going there. I ended up finding out a few months later that Tom wasn't even named Tom at all. He was a con man from out of town. This came to light after he impregnated a 15-year-old in the youth group. Have you ever had any experience in which you ignored your gut instinct and the spirit of open-mindedness, in particular in regards to trying religion, only to have your instincts proven right? Never in so shocking a fashion as you describe. I have no experience like that, but I've had sort of smaller versions of that. I remember for several years in my early 20s, I dated a girl who was a church-going Christian, and there were a few times when I went to church with her, and there was once when I went to her Sunday school class, and I thought, I have this sort of stereotypical view of conservative Christians and how they are, because it was a very sort of conservative church. And they're all these bloodless Republicans, and they don't care about poor people, and they have these really backwards, intolerant ideas about people in other religions. But I thought, I'll go to this Sunday school class with her, and I'll keep an open mind, and I'll meet some new people, and it'll give me some, a new insight into this church community and to my girlfriend, and it'll be a good experience. And the folks in her Sunday school class pretty much turned out to fit my stereotype of what Christians like that were like. And looking back on it, it's kind of comical. But yeah, that's the best I can come up with. I never had any experiences where, the youth pastor started licking motherfuckers. That's just, yeah. That'll validate your religious skepticism real quick. Mel Oerter. Hi, Steve. I'm an Australian atheist. In my country, there is some degree of Islamophobia. I struggle with how to be critical of the religion, whether it be Islam, Christianity, or anything else, in a way that does not cause discrimination or other effects of the believers themselves. Is there a legitimate way of criticizing religion without criticizing the followers? And how do you discuss things like Muslims not wanting everyone else to not draw Muhammad? Is it right to draw Muhammad or make points about his bad character or violence in the Bible or the Quran? I think the most important thing that I have learned as far as criticizing the religion and not the people who follow it is to not essentialize the religion. We essentialize Islam here in the West a lot more often than we do Christianity, because in the West, Muslims are a minority, and the Islamic faith does not have a great deal of political or social influence. So it's easy for us to sort of look at Islam as this one simple monolithic thing and say those Muslims are like this or their religion says that. And we forget, or we just never realize in the first place, that Islam is an incredibly complex and diverse faith, just like Christianity and just like many other religions. We leave people with the impression that we are saying that the problem we are talking about is inherent to Islam on the whole, like all of Islam is responsible for this problem. And that's rarely, if ever, the case in a faith as diverse as Islam or Christianity. So that to me is the most important thing. Don't essentialize the faith. Radical Bacon. My friend is getting a pretty awful divorce. I don't really know his wife. We were never friends, but from what he's saying, she's been terrible to him. Some all women are awful stuff has started to creep into our discussions, except for me, since I'm not like other girls. Rolls eyes, which is understandable, but still kind of gross. So how might I help him speed through this phase? I don't know if you can really help him speed through it. If he's going through a really messy, uncomfortable divorce, that's gotta be very traumatizing. I know when my parents divorced several years ago, it was very, very hard, especially on my father. And you can't really force someone to speed through that. Now, if he is saying some misogynistic things as a result of his bad experience with his wife, I don't know, maybe that might be a time when you want to deploy some strategic silence. If he says something negative about women because of some experience he's having with his wife or soon-to-be ex-wife, that might be the time for a little bit of a side eye to be like, And if he picks up on it, then maybe you can go a little bit further into it and say, I know that she's being really terrible to you right now, and this is an awful experience, and she's not a good person for the way she's treating you like this, but you can't just blame all women everywhere for the shitty actions of this one person. Maybe a few little reminders like that would help. Although I wonder how productive it would be as long as he is in this really negative place, where he's living through this terrible divorce, and he's probably not going to be too receptive to, well, now just, let's try to keep perspective, because he's still experiencing those feelings. Once he's able to get a little bit of distance, and maybe once the divorce is over and he's had time to sort of settle into whatever his life is going to be after his marriage, then it might be a more productive time to address those issues. Secular Scholar. Hey, Steve, I was never a religious person myself, so I don't know the honest answer to this question, but since you were religious once, you should be able to give some insight. How often do people pray or ask for blessings? While people do ask for their food to be blessed, do people pray when dealing with the other end of that process? Do people pray after waking up? Before or after doing their morning exercise? Do they ask the water they got out of the office water cooler to be blessed? When I was a very young child, my mother tried to get me into the habit of praying before bed, you know, saying your prayers before going to bed. And I remember doing that when I was very young, like maybe 4 or 5 years old. But I got out of that habit fairly quickly because I just never enjoyed doing it, and I never really saw the point of it. And the whole, if I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take line really wasn't my favorite. But, you know, my mom's father would pray constantly. And there are other religious folks I've known who pray a lot, you know, who ask blessings for the food, who pray when they're in a difficult life situation. I don't think I've ever known anyone who has prayed that, you know, the water cooler water would be blessed or anything like that. I'm sure there are some people like that. I've never known anybody like that personally, but I'm sure there must be people who are in just, you know, almost too pious for polite company, you know, that are constantly praying and asking God's blessing on everything. Those people must exist, but I have never personally known someone like that. But it just depends, you know what I mean? Like in my experience, I haven't really had a lot of that among my Christian friends or my Christian family, or when I myself was living in a Christian tradition. There wasn't like praying about every little tiny thing, but yeah, it just depends. It depends on what church you go to and what your personal beliefs are. It just varies. It varies a great deal from person to person. Joe McClory. So I have been thinking about the Comey firing since it was reported, and well, even giving the administration the benefit of the doubt, which I don't, and still believing the reasons they claim, it is still hard to believe they are so bad at politics that they do not realize just how bad the optics are in the timing, and even if they did nothing wrong, they have no place in politics because they are clearly awful at it. How does it feel that in this moment the president has made James Comey, of all people, a martyred hero for simply doing his job? It is disorienting how many shitty people Trump has been able to elicit sympathy for from me just by the virtue of his own even worse shittiness. As for how could Trump's White House do something like this, given how bad the optics look? I honestly would chalk it up to just Trump being erratic and having no self-control and being incredibly petty and thin-skinned, and perhaps being naive enough to believe that if he got rid of the FBI director, it would make the investigations that are currently threatening him go away. I mean, I really think that he has that attitude of, well, I'm the boss and he's not doing what I want him to do, and he's straying into areas that I don't want him to look into, so I'll just get rid of him and then that'll be that. I'm sure there are people in the White House who know how bad this looks, who are like, oh Christ, we have to go on TV and defend this. We have to go on TV and tell the media that this makes perfect sense and there's nothing to be worried about here. But you know damn well there are people in that Trump White House who, as soon as they heard about the Comey thing, were like, God damn it. Like, I got to go on CNN in 15 minutes and make this sound like this is a completely reasonable thing and that there's nothing to see here. Yeah. Never attribute to malice what can be attributed to ignorance or neglect. That, I believe, is Hanlon's razor. And that is the best way to view the Trump White House. It's not that there's not malice there, because there's clearly a great deal of malice, but there's probably even more neglect and ineptitude there. So anyway, speaking of neglect and ineptitude, it's time for the lightning round. Yeah, buddy, Havard Hegenhogen. How few questions would have to be asked for you not to make a You Had to Ask video? Well, let's not find out. Let's just keep going with the way it's been going. I like it that way. I don't know. Lucas Hackett. Steve, I'm going to make this short and sweet, but in your mind, what do you think is the worst snack food of all time? Oh, God. Maybe yogurt. I've tried to like yogurt, and I'm just not ever going to like yogurt. So I would, off the top of my head, I would say probably yogurt. Matt Machado. Hey, Steve, what's your opinion of the Young Turks? In recent years, they've gotten a lot of criticism from both anti-SJWs and SJWs. Do you think any of the criticism is justified? I honestly don't watch the Young Turks enough to have any strong opinion on them either way. I've watched a few videos of theirs here and there. I don't think I've ever watched like their live broadcast, their main flagship show. So, you know, I honestly don't know enough about them to know whether their the criticisms of them are justified or not. I know that Alex Jones really doesn't like Cenk Uygur, so he can't be, you know, so he can't be that bad. Marston 8. Hi, Steve. Why doesn't Superman use his godlike abilities for evil? Are we to believe that Superman is good all the time, and all the time Superman is good? Is there a defense for Lex Luthor in trying to stop Superman before Superman turns to the evil god? Well, Superman uses his powers for good because he's Superman. But I actually think it's a really interesting idea if you wanted to write a Superman story where Lex Luthor was making that argument of, okay, sure, Superman is good now, but just wait, inevitably he's going to be seduced to the dark side somehow, and then you're all going to wish you'd listened to me. I mean, I think that's actually a really great motivation for Lex and a really good premise for a story, you know. Bruce Bardup, if the Russian people wanted us to, should we destabilize Putin? No, I don't know. I don't think so. I think interfering in the internal affairs of another country is always, or at least almost always, a very bad idea. I mean, we've done that a lot throughout U.S. history, and I don't think we should. And how are the Russian people going to tell us anyway? Are they going to get together and send us a postcard signed by, like, you know, millions and millions of people? Please destabilize Putin, signed, and then like all of their names at the bottom. I don't know how they would communicate that to us, that was like a consensus view of the Russian people, that they wanted us to get rid of Putin for them. Yeah, I don't think that it's a good idea. Mariusz Butrakovsky, what happened to the "This Is Not Normal" background? Oh, it's still there. It's still my regular desktop background. I switched to this background for the You Had to Ask videos because I just think it looks better on video. But yeah, the old background is still there. I'll just cycle through there. Oh, there's my user pick. There's another one. There's me in my Normalized Atheism t-shirt. There's the "This Is Not Normal" image. It's still there. It's actually my regular desktop image. I just switched to the other one because I think it looks better. So there you go. Aren't you glad you asked? Jay Dodify, Steve just got to the end of this now. While the C word doesn't offend me in any way, and I do remember finding the 5 things funny, it's up to you if you're not comfortable about it now and want to take it down. How about replacing it with 5 repugnant things about Ann Coulter? Talking about the 5 stupid things about Ann Coulter video that I said last week that I made private because I say the C word in it like 50 times. The only thing about making a new Ann Coulter video is that I kind of promised myself, and I think I even mentioned it in a video a few years ago, that I wasn't going to mention Ann Coulter anymore. So I'm kind of breaking my own rule just even by talking about it in this video, but I'll let myself off the hook this one time. I decided that, you know, basically everything she does is to get people's attention, so I'm not going to pay any attention to her anymore. And making another video with her name in the title all about her, even if it's about what a piece of shit she is still giving her attention. So I would rather just not give her the attention. The Golden Rose, lightning round. What is your opinion on the Daddy of 5 scandal? I think it's awful. I think that channel, I wasn't even aware of that channel until the scandal. I think the exploiting of children for YouTube fame, the shittiest of all possible fames, really, is unconscionable. They have lost custody of 2 of the kids. I think that's completely appropriate. I think that's good. That makes me happy that 2 kids are no longer in that house. What puzzles me is why they still have a fucking YouTube channel. I mean, they've taken down all of their videos except for the apology video, but the channel is still up. Why hasn't YouTube removed that fucking channel? If you have a YouTube channel where your content is derived from you abusing your children on camera, how hard is it for YouTube to just step in after the channel has become infamous for doing that? And a bunch of other YouTubers even have made videos about it. How hard is it for YouTube to step in and say, yeah, we don't need this, and to just get rid of the fucking channel? Kevin Logan, so Aaron Ra's pretty awesome, huh? Yeah. Oh yeah. Aaron's great. Aaron is the opposite of someone who should lose their channel for being a piece of shit. Aaron's awesome, and so is Lalandra. Lalandra may actually be even more awesome than Aaron, which I know is a bold statement, but she's pretty cool. She's pretty goddamn cool herself. Samuel Sturgill, I wonder if Steve likes the Transformers. He does. He does. I happen to know on a very good, from a very, very reliable source that Steve does like the Transformers. Not the movies, though. The cartoon, the original cartoon, the original 80s cartoon. That's it. I also happen to know that Steve prefers Rodimus Prime to Optimus Prime. That's right. Anyway, that was the last question. That's it. It's time now for the shout out, and the shout out this week goes to yet another organization whose work and whose focus in terms of activism and social justice and human rights is incredibly necessary, especially now as we are living under the Trump administration, the rapidly self-destructing Trump administration. This organization is devoted to dealing with the problem of police brutality, of police violence in America specifically, and it is Campaign Zero. This organization was started by activists affiliated with the Black Lives Matter movement, and it is devoted to fighting back against police violence in America. You can go to the website, which is joincampaignzero.org, to donate to the cause, to learn more about what Campaign Zero is, what they do. They have a 10-point platform for how to deal with police violence, for how to reduce police violence in communities. A lot of it is just common sense stuff, like stop broken window policing, like rebuild relationships between police officers and the communities that they serve, recruit for police forces from the communities where the police will be doing their work. So check out Campaign Zero, joincampaignzero.org to learn more. There you go. That's the shout out. I also want to tell you, as always, to have a listen to some awesome podcasts that are part of the Lemme Listen family of podcasts. There's a whole bunch of awesome Lemme Listen podcasts. There is Lemme Finish, the original Lemme Listen podcast, which is co-hosted by my good friend Jason Harding and Finite Atticus. There's American Monsters, the hilarious improv comedy podcast. There is Filmtastic Voyage, co-hosted by Mike and Alex. There is Cinetific, the movie science podcast, hosted by Professor Jason and Professor Aaron. There's 3 for Adventure, the role-playing game podcast. And then last but certainly not least, there is Late Seating, the belated movie review podcast, co-hosted by Jason and me, where we take a fresh look at a classic film, a film that has a reputation for either being great or terrible. We watch it, we summarize it, we make fun of it, toss in a few jokes here and there, and then we review it and decide for ourselves whether the movie deserves its reputation, whether that reputation is good or bad. And you can listen to our brand new episode of Late Seating that goes online today, the same day that this video is being published. And it is a special birthday present that Jason and I gave ourselves, because it just so happens that Jason and I are both May babies. My birthday was last week and toward the beginning of May. Jason's is a little bit later this month. But we gave ourselves a birthday present for our show, and we reviewed one of our favorite films, which is the classic 1949 film noir starring Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles, directed by the great and underappreciated Carol Reed. Of course, I'm talking about The Third Man. You can hear our review of The Third Man. You can hear all of the past episodes of Late Seating and all of the episodes of all of the excellent Lemme Listen podcasts by going to lemmelistenpodcast.com. And I really wish that you would. You won't be sorry. You will not. You will not be sorry. Probably. I'm assuming you won't be. I'm assuming that you will like the show as much as I do. I have that problem sometimes, but usually it turns out to be okay. So listen to the Lemme Listen podcast, and especially Late Seating, because that's the one that I'm on. Would you? Thank you. I appreciate it. That's it for me, everybody. I am out of here for another week. I want to thank you, as always, for watching and for asking questions. And please do leave a comment on this video to ask your question for next time. You can ask me anything about anything. Nothing is too serious. Nothing is too silly. I will answer as many of your questions as I possibly can in the next video. So please do leave a comment to ask your question, because in order for me to do this, you have to ask. So ask away, everybody, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Take care. Hey folks, one more thing before I go. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed what you saw just now. If you did, please like, share, subscribe to the channel if you're not subbed already, and also please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.